All right, let's get right into it. I've spent my entire life buried in ancient languages, and you start to get a feel for things. You learn to recognize when a story's been, well, when it's been cleaned up. For 2,000 years, the story of Judas Iscariot was pretty simple. He's the bad guy. But then this other text, the Gospel of Judas, shows up and hints at something way deeper, way stranger, a truth that I'm pretty sure has been hidden on purpose.
So let's just start with the biggest question, the one that kind of shakes the whole foundation. What if the most famous act of betrayal in all of human history wasn't a betrayal at all? What if it was actually a carefully planned, sacred, and get this, even a mechanical ritual?
You know, when the Gnostic Gospel of Judas was finally found and translated, it was a bombshell. It completely flipped the script. Suddenly, Judas wasn't a traitor, he was Jesus' most trusted disciple. But here's the thing. As I started digging into the original Coptic myself, something just felt profoundly off. Even this hero version felt like it was covering up an even more radical truth.
And that gets us to the real heart of the problem here. The issue isn't just with the Bible's version of the story, it's with the modern translation of this Gnostic gospel too. It just feels sanitized.
Yeah, that thought just kind of took over my life for a while. The whole tone felt wrong, you know? It's like the raw, esoteric guts of the text had been deliberately passed through a filter of mainstream theology, trying to soften a reality that seems way harsher and way more technical. And when you really start looking, the cracks are everywhere. The Jesus in this text, he's not the loving figure we all know. He's kind of rude, almost condescending. And then you have Judas. He's praised as this exalted 13th spirit, but in the next breath he's told he'll be cursed for generations. I mean, which is it? It's a total contradiction. And then there's this luminous cloud. It's not described as some holy light, but as a living creature. These aren't just little translation quirks. They're huge clues that the story we have is missing something big. So trying to solve this with traditional theology was a dead end. I had to look somewhere else, in some pretty strange places, to be honest. And the key, unbelievably, wasn't in another ancient scroll. It was in this modern, highly esoteric text that mixes physics and metaphysics.
It's called the ALQC canon. Okay, look, to put it simply, it's a framework that tries to describe how the universe and consciousness work, using the language of both really advanced physics and ancient ritual. It's super controversial for sure, but I had this gut feeling that its structural language might just be the Rosetta Stone for the Gospel's original code.
And yeah, this equation gives you a taste of how dense it is. But you don't need to be a mathematician here. The point isn't the formula itself. The point is that this thing is a blueprint. It's a precise architectural diagram for a metaphysical process. And when I laid this blueprint down next to the structure of the Gospel of Judas, the parallels were just staggering.
And this was the moment where it all just snapped into focus. The two texts, one ancient and one modern, weren't just kind of similar. They seemed to be mirror images of each other. They shared the exact same underlying structure.
I mean, just look at this. It's almost a one-to-one match. The ALQC talks about a 13-year loop, a specific cycle of transformation. In the Gospel, who is it? Judas, the 13th star, who kicks off that very cycle. The shadow hole in the ALQC is like a containment field. The Gospel calls it the luminous cloud. But this is the big one. The ALQC describes a ship, the hardware, the vessel, and a pilot, the authorized user who controls it. This maps perfectly onto Jesus as the vessel and Judas as the pilot, with the authority to activate him.
So you see, this isn't just a coincidence. It's not just a few shared themes. We're talking about a shared architecture, a shared source code. It suggests the Gospel of Judas isn't some simple spiritual story. It's an allegory for a precise metaphysical process that the ALQC describes with mathematics.
And having this architectural key unlocks the most shocking secret of all, the one part of the text so radical, so blasphemous, that it seems translators just scrubbed it from existence for 2,000 years.
So what was it? What was so dangerous that it had to be completely erased, even from a text that was already considered heresy? This is the line they wiped. According to the Rock Coptic, the text describes a physical union that was so shocking to Orthodox minds, it was just written out. Early translators saw pure blasphemy, but when you look at it through the lens of the ALQC, it's not about lust or profanity at all. It's a symbolic description of a mechanical process, a sacred connection. The ALQC actually has a term for it, total symmetry phase lock. It describes the perfect joining of two parts of a system to trigger a totally new state of being. So in this context, Judas, the pilot, physically connects to Jesus, the vessel, to initiate what the text calls null death. And we're not talking about physical death, but the death of the old cosmic reality. The betrayal wasn't a betrayal, it was the ignition sequence.
And once you understand that, you understand exactly why it had to be hidden. It doesn't just change the story, it completely inverts the entire power structure of Western religion.
Let's just put the two readings side by side. In the version we all know, Jesus is the divine savior, and Judas is, at best, the tragic helper. But in this mechanical reading, the roles are flipped. Jesus becomes the sacred offering. He's the vessel for the change. And Judas? He's the high priest. He's the active agent with the knowledge and the authority to start this whole cosmic ritual.
And this is exactly why it was so dangerous. This reading gets rid of the need for sin, for sacrifice, for salvation as we know it. Jesus and Judas aren't savior and sinner. They become a single, unified entity, a completed circuit. And that circuit exists outside the control of the lesser gods, the archons that the Gnostics believed were running this world. It completely collapses the entire foundation of religious control.
It really leaves you with a pretty wild thought at the end of all this. The story of Judas might be the most famous example, but it makes you wonder, how many other pillars of our history, our philosophy, our faith aren't based on what was originally written, but on what translators were willing, or maybe allowed, to let us see?